And then well, Ed should be here very shortly. If he's not, that's okay. We've got a few things I can do, sound bites. But evidently, he's going to be talking first, and then he'll allow everybody else to jump in and give their opinion. That's okay. That'll be fine. Let's do a little soundbite here. One of my favorites, 6 minutes.
To my door saying I broke a law.
I didn't say you broke a law.
Can I see your badge?
Your badge is right here. It matches the car.
And I broke a law.
I didn't say you broke a law.
So why the police here?
Again, for the fourth time, the police are here because of the fact I wish you get the camera out of my face.
You're at my door.
I know, but you don't. I would like.
Yeah,
What do you need? What do you need?
What do you need?
What do you need done? Do you need to see the baby or not?
See the baby.
Okay. He needs to see the child.
I need to see the
And
child.
all
I
you
need to
gotta
make
do
sure
is verify. He wants to verify.
Verify
He's
what?
that
telling
the
you.
child needs to go to the doctor also to be seen. That is what I'm telling you.
What doctor?
If not, it's child.
What doctor? See,
Because the child.
what hospital? What hospital? What
You go to
hospital?
Western Wake.
Did you ask me my religion? This is disrespectful. Did you ask me my religion?
I didn't ask you.
Did you ask me my beliefs?
I didn't ask you.
No, you just came to my door making threats.
I didn't make threats.
Do I have a right to practice my religious beliefs? Do I have a right to do that in America? I'm asking you a question. So why are you at my door?
Because I need to see the baby.
You need to see whose baby?
Your baby and Miss Stone's baby.
For what reasons?
Because of the fact.
Are you a doctor?
I'm not a doctor.
So why do you need to see the baby?
Because I'm with Child Protective Services. That's why I
Okay.
need to see the child.
All right.
Because it's a part of the job that I do.
For who? Who are you? For who? Who are you doing this job for?
Child Protective Services.
For who?
For who?
For who?
For Wake County. It's on my card.
For who? So I'm a property of Wake County?
Sorry.
No, I'm asking you a question. Am I a property of Wake
No,
County?
you're not.
So who are you doing the service for?
I need to see the child because that's a part of my job.
Who are you doing the service for? Am I a property of Wake County?
I don't think you're a property of Wake County.
Okay, so if I'm not a property of Wake County, what do you need to see my child for? I am responsible for my child, ain't
But
I?
I still need to see that child.
For what? Oh, you're not a doctor?
You're right. So that's
You're
why
not a doctor? What law is that? Can you cite that law?
You know.
Can you cite that? You said
what I'm
because of the
telling you-
law.
Right. Because of the
They're
fact
the
that
law.
child.
Can
the
you
child
cite the
needs-
law?
The child needs to be seen.
Can
The
you,
child needs to
what
be
law?
seen by a doctor.
What law is that?
The child needs to be seen by a
What
doctor.
law?
The
You're
child
at my
needs to be
door,
seen.
right?
Right.
You're telling me what I have to do, right?
What I'm
Tell me the
telling you
law.
It's medical neglect. The child hasn't been seen.
What is the law?
Like I said, it's medical emergency based on the fact
What
of
is the
child.
statute? What is the law?
You know.
You're just saying something off
You're right.
off the
You're
top
right.
of your
You're
head.
right.
I know I'm right.
So my thing is.
I know I'm right
I need to see the
because
child.
you know why I'm right. Do you know why I'm right?
So you're gonna tell me. Why is that?
I don't need to tell. You're at my door, sir. I didn't come to you.
I know you didn't. I need to.
Why
see the
am I
child.
right?
I need to see the child.
Actually, why am I right? Because I know the law.
I need to see the child. I need to see the child.
I don't care what you need.
Now that was just a short little soundbite of a father who videotaped CPS with two policy officers at his front door. They just needed to. The CPS wanted to see the child. He basically, as you heard, wanted to know the law, wanted to know does that county own him, all that other great, wonderful stuff you need to know. Because if you don't have your standing, can run right over you. That guy, he stood. He knew he was not property of the county. Therefore, it goes on a long time. And basically, the CPS worker and the policy officers just walk away, which I like that. So, Ed, you're here. Why don't you take it away?
All right, thanks a lot. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us again. We're going to do a little bit of an open forum tonight. Also, too, I'm gonna bat around because Michael Skoll has a competitive talk show this evening that they're doing, and I'll get that information at 6. This is dealing with tort claims, so I'll give people that information. If you want to know what tort claims are and how to do that against your public servants, it's one way that is, plausible, can work. So I want to make sure that people get that so they know, the other side of the coin here. So I got to find that link that he sent me yesterday. Should be on my wall. I'll get to that, and I'll get that number out. I'm going through several emails right now trying to get caught up. So, but anyhow, I want to bring up a couple major points tonight. That is the one point that when you listen to that audio tape that was done, that's a videotape that was sent to us. We provided that out on our websites and to a whole bunch of people. And this is the major, major point, folks. Comprehending who owns you. Rob Ryder does a wonderful video out there on who owns you and to own yourself and claim yourself, which I have done myself. A lot of people have done. You claim ownership of you. That is the main point. Most people don't get how that works because some people can't comprehend that the state claims that they own you. And that's exactly what they do, is they claim that they own you, and people don't get it. They think that, they have to do what a doctor tells them or a public servant tells them. This is the one thing that you've got to realize, that it's your body, your soul, your structure, your children are your bloodline property. And if you don't file ownership of your property, that's the problem. This is the one thing is that people are still trying to push the Moore issue. This is the one thing that people got to wake up. And you got to realize that, that we've got to protect our soil. We got to protect our stuff. That is the one thing that comes down to that if we don't protect our land, our soil, our structure, what future do we have? I always preach this. And so when you're listening to this tape with this gentleman that is bringing up the point, do you own me? And that is the point. Most people don't comprehend when you get pulled over and you're getting harassed by an elected and public code enforcer. Remember, his job as a tax collector to bring in as much revenue to the devil people, and that's including him when he writes a citation. Remember, a cop who writes a citation is a devil man. He don't care about you. He don't love you. Wake up. See, that's what gets to me. A lot of people go support these public servants, and then they go defend them and say, well, they didn't mean to do this. They didn't mean to do that. They didn't mean to shoot somebody. They didn't mean to harm somebody. That's bullshit, people. And the day that you start accepting the true structure of what reality is compared to the fantasy people live. I know we've been dumbed down in such a fashion by TV media and especially the last few years in our school system. We do have the worst school system in the nation. That's a proven fact. And that's where people have got to come to the conclusion of these things to realize that our education system in the United States has failed not only you, but failed us. I know it was changing back in the 80s when I saw those when I was getting out of school. And it was scary on the point that when you saw what was coming up and the way that they were putting things together for the future generations, and you knew they were going to be stupid, but you couldn't speak on it because people didn't want you to tell the truth. Especially ministers and doctors and religious men of the cloth. They don't want you to know the truth. Their job is to lie. No different than a judge or a cop. And that's true. Today's ministers, they're not like they were, 100 years ago, where, they weren't all just about themselves. And remember, the church lives off of you. The church has no other income but a 501c3 through 9 where they write it off at the end of the year. And yes, they do write it off. They don't need income coming in. It's a nonprofit, so they take their bills and write it off. So it's knowing how all the system works compared to what we think it is or what we've been led to believe. And this is the one point that once you start realizing the system itself, what it does to you and I, what it does to your children or your neighbors or the structure around you. Now, I'm going to get into open forum here in a few minutes, but also, too, I want to bring this up. We had a wonderful conversation the other night dealing with the flag issue, the gold fringe flag. Well, I did spend this morning, or after last night this morning, putting together, I'm working on a 4 template, information template, and I've got all the structures to all the federal agencies, including the courts, including the House and Senate, the FBI. I've got all their forms, but we're going to put their form together in a fashion that is our form. You never want to fill their forms out personally and turn them in, because it doesn't matter if they'll tell you, you have to put it in our form. No, you do not. You write your own form. You put it in their form, even though that, you know, if you use their numbers and their structures, they're going to hold you liable to administrative rules. Hey, that's reality. I don't care what other people might tell you. That's a true story. They'll hold you that way for their own gain, and that's all they care about. So you got to remember that your elected and public employees and religious today is all about the income. It's not about protecting people. It's not about saving things, because if the churches really cared in your community, how come they don't have gardens? How come when people of their congregation become homeless and they shut the door on them? See, I mean, that's the thing that gets to me about churches and stuff that goes on in our areas. I don't like the word communities and all that stuff as British words. I sure don't like the structure that they bring out dealing with democracy, because we're not. And so the point is getting turned around to talk the truth about the way our English language is. And yes, I know our English language came from a foreign country, technically, was shoved down our throats, because most of this country before we were invaded. And I mean, we were invaded. We didn't open up our doors and our arms and say, oh, you're welcome and come in. We were invaded and we got raped, robbed, and pillaged by foreigners. And that's a reality we cannot change. But we can change the future on it. That's why the whole point is when our acting president of the corporation, you have to realize it's a corporation, and he knows it. That's the one thing Donald Trump knows. He's a corporation. And when people start attacking him about different issues, it would be nice if people would grow up and learn the truth. Learn the truth of our country. Learn the truth of the heritage that your forefathers came from. Learn the heritage, first of all, of this country before you even speak. That's always helpful. You know? I mean, that's the one thing that you've got to realize how simple life really is. Men and women make life difficult. They do. They make life difficult. And that's the problem that we are living today. It is sad that we put into this structure of going off on these points. It is sad that we're going through these anger issues that are portrayed on us by others. But we can't argue that point. We have to either correct it or speak over them. So I've almost got the one template on the forum request. It's sort of going to be a bulky template. It's going to have a lot of information on it, but people are going to have to choose their own state, do some research, because I'm not going to go through all 48 states and get their Freedom of Information Act. I'm going to do the federal and Oregon and set up one that way. And then people are going to have to do their own state one, because remember, your state one has to comply with the federal government. And the federal government, yes, it is the British government, but they are under the contract of the Vatican Contract of 1871 with we the people. And that's where we need to keep the structure going to keep it so our children and grandchildren have some future. And if we don't do that, there is no future for the kids. There's no future for you. And there's no future of your so-called retirement plans and all that stuff that the Democrats have been stealing. And, of course, the representatives of the Vatican and your Republicans are no different. Anybody who believes in that crap, because, I mean, it's like I got off the phone with somebody earlier today, and they're Roman Catholic, and that's what they believe in. Well, fine. I don't have to believe in your religion. That's the one thing is I won't believe in that any religion because religion controls people. You know, I went through my first communion and all that stuff when I was growing up, and I've been there, done it, lived it. You know, and so when people sit there and they go, well, you don't know what you're talking about on religious stuff. Yes, I went through my first communion. I went through all that stuff. I almost was an altar boy. I went to Star of the Sea in San Francisco. I remember when the nurse used to sit there and take a little ruler, and when he said something they didn't like, they cracked on the back of your knuckles. I lived it, been there. So this is the thing. I don't take all that personal or get angry over that stuff. To me, that was a learning experience. I had to learn that to give me the knowledge of what I speak today. You can't take it all personal, and people say, well, I need to go back and sue them for what they... No, you don't. You have to realize and come to reality terms, because in reality of life, living, things are there to teach you in life, and it's not to go after people individually, you know, because that wasn't really personal harm. Yeah, I felt my knuckles hurt. But they're doing because of what they believe. That's like going back in history, when your parents were taught the way they were believed, when your parents were structurally going through the problems that this country derived and made for us. You know, it's like one senator told me, well, everybody wants jobs. They don't want 192. And I was sitting there going, what do you mean everybody wants jobs? You know, we don't have to work. We already got the funding, and they're stealing our trust accounts over this issue. And, yes, we're still working on that, dealing with 192 on structures. I'm getting more and more things starting to move out, but it is taking a little time, because the one thing is I want to make sure that when we start progressing, and I hate that word progressing, but when we start progressing in this, I want to make sure that we're not setting not only ourselves but anybody else ended up in jail. Because I don't like that game. There's a lot of people out there who are heartless and do this stuff, who don't care. We are not doing that. I'm not going to participate in that type of structure, because we don't need that type of structure in our lives, and we're not going to live it. We're not going to pass it on to you. And the one thing, huh? Oh, thought somebody said something there. Anyhow, the one point that I'm finishing up the templates on that one. I got another one that I am working on to finish up on the vaccinations. I found a couple other pieces on the information on vaccinations I want to put in this instrument. Sometimes things just show up on the internet for me, so I just, I got to read it, and then I put together those pieces to make logical sense in an instrument. So when I do that, I want to make sure that people know what's going on, that people are able to comprehend and cover their own selves. And so, like I said, I do recommend owning yourself. File and own your paperwork. A lot of people say, well, you have to go to court, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. But first off, you have to own yourself. File. Put your affidavits out there. That's a must. Because you have to put out the structure to protect you and your bloodline. Nobody else is going to do it. That's a fact. So if you don't protect you, nobody else is going to protect you. So seeing that you've got that point that is being set up, and I know a lot of people are working on that right now, and there's a lot of suggestions that we're giving out and getting out. And that is the beauty about this, working together with each other. It's like the suggestion the other evening was, hey, we got to do a FOIA request to know the definition of the flag. Too many opinions are like diapers. They're shitty. We're tired of shitty diapers. So we're going to have to go with facts. We're going to have to go with that structure. We're going to have to sit there and go to the public employees, the servants, and we want them to verify and prove it in certification in writing. That's their job. That's what they need to do. We have to make sure that we make our public servants do their job, even against their will. Their will is to work for us. That is the whole point of their will, is to work for us. That's why they get a paycheck. That's why March 9th, 1933 went in place, because prior to that, we didn't really have public employees per se. And prior to that, they were only administratively, register your land and that structure. It wasn't registering your land in the Vatican of the corporation. It was, you were private landowners. And that's what, or soil owners, thank you for the correction, but soil owners. And so that is the point, that it's knowing very clearly of how to write your affidavit and statements. So when you put your letters together, what I do on all my letters, I write non-commercial. I'm not going into that. Then I put CCC for care of on my mailing address. Because I've literally filed on my mailing address and got it filed with the Secretary of State that I'm non-commercial. And so that's the one thing that you can do. Get this stuff, and then when you do it, you post it. You make sure it's public. You publicize it. And that is the one thing that people need to do this, so that way you have it on record, because I'll tell you, it freaks the heck out of them. And I know a couple people that recently that have filed their paperwork, done all this a couple years ago. They ended up in trouble, and they were forced a public pretender. So they gave their paperwork to the public pretender, and the public pretender says, I can't represent this. And it's like, oh, why not? Why can't you represent this? Oh, well, that's right, because you can't represent a living man. You have to represent a corporation, and if you have to represent a corporation, you can't represent the structure that you are claiming that's in front of you, because it's federally illegal for them to do this. So it is very important to read the administrative rules, the court proceedings, those type of circumstances. It is very important you read their rules, their structure. Because once you comprehend that their rules and their structures are full of doggy-doo, then you get to comprehend how the system even works to trap you and get you involved. It's like, dealing with registration with schools and stuff. And they're going, well, if you don't have vaccinations, you can't come to school. Well, not only are they quoting administrative rules, but that's all they're doing is quoting administrative rules. They're not quoting actual law that has been passed by Congress, but Congress is administrative, what is that called? Statute codes and administrative rules. The only law of this country is called the Constitution, is the law of the land. And that's seriously, that's the only thing that we have in this country is called the law of the land. Law of the soil. The Democrats call it the law of the land, and we call it the law of the soil. Because land is above the space. When it says this space, it is above the air, the water, it's above the land. It's no man's land, it's fictitious corporation. And they get people into doing this and going along with it without comprehending what the structure of our country really is all about. That is the saddest part, that we forget how to protect ourselves and our children. And that's the one thing that the intro that the producer put on, dealing with the guys asking these cops these questions. And remember, you can question your public servants, and that is your employment. People say, well, I'm not employed to do that. It is your employment when you think about employment, because either you're there to protect your structure or you're a domestic terrorist. It's that simple. Either you're there for your children or you're not. And so it is putting these pieces together of how to stand up. Now, we do have some stuff on the Oregon Trackers page, the new.Oregon Trackers website, which I am working because I want to keep that up and running. Eventually, I got to figure that out here in a few months because, like I said, I paid in advance on it when I had some resources, and I mean, I take care of that myself. That is the one thing I do. I mean, a lot of this stuff that done, but I mean, I paid for some things in advance when I had some money, and now, seeing that they stole money out of my land and all that stuff, my soil, and all that's been recorded. I mean, I even got convicted for the cops robbing my own home. Tell me if that's all we were. I mean, these guys play this way. You got to remember when you go into these courts, and I always get entertainment by all these people say, well, I'm going to go fight it in court. Well, I find it amazing when you go fight it in court. What court? What court are you fighting it in? What reality are you going for that you think is there? We want to know because, we fight in court. We win cases because the judges don't want this information publicly known, a lot of stuff. So they want to fight it, and they don't want it in court. They don't want the information known to the general public. Well, in time that's got to be more and more, time that's going to come out more and more. So it's up to our responsibility to protect our children, our areas. I don't like the word community. I sure don't like the word village. It takes a village to raise a family. And then after you start realizing what they mean by village, that means the cops, the mayor, the city council, everybody telling you how to live in your own communities. Of course, I just go like, where the hell did we lose reality? That's my thought on these issues. So, I mean, we got a lot to look forward in the future coming up. We do. And it is protecting people on these circumstances of what is aroused by us and around by us. And that's the one thing that we've got to start looking at the future here. How to solve these issues. Now, we have some templates that we're working on, not only with you, but others. And so that is the point. That is the point, just doing this stuff. So it's up to people that are doing this, standing up for our rights. So, but anyhow, we've got those things happening. I'll get the templates out coming out here in a while. So, but I want to open up the floor because, like I said, I was going to open the floor forum so we could get stuff going for next week. We'll get the template definitely out for definitely out. So that way we can see what's going on around what's going on in our structure. And it's up to us to do this.
All participants are unmuted.
Thank you. So anyhow, the floor is open if anybody would like to bring up a point. Okay. I guess nobody wants to speak at this point, so I'll get, yeah, it is true. It is sad we buy into this BS the way we've been programmed by the TV, our parents, the structure around us. I remember going through that with growing up. I mean, one thing was interesting in my life, the way I look at it. I grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco, and then I grew up in Marin County. I mean, when I grew up in San Francisco, I thought the National Forest was Golden Gate Park until I left the concrete jungle. And it is true. People don't get how the concrete jungle works or this type of stuff happens in life. But people, this is the one thing about life that we're living. It's a fact. So, and like I said, the audio tape that brought us into this structure is a wonderful audio tape of this guy defending his family and his home. And so once people start realizing that you have a right to defend yourself, and you don't have to feel like, you're being attacked or you're being singled out. Once people accept that fact, then we don't have the problems we do. And people always say, well, things ain't changing fast enough. But actually, things are changing. You've got to pay attention to what's going on in our country or your area, because things have been being passed administratively that are working. But it doesn't work as fast as we think it should be. It doesn't work as fast as it's supposed to be. Because people are used to seeing that, it is scary. And if you look at OregonTrackers.com on YouTube, you'll see the land stolen and held by the Vatican, the British government. This is the one thing that people got to realize. Democracy and democratic democracy is the devil people. And if you support that, then you are supporting the devil people. And you have to wake up to what's really going on here. Because this is the one thing it is. And people go, well, there's a separation of good and evil. Yes, there is. But I don't believe in the structure of what they call the Bible, in that structure. I just don't believe in it. Because it doesn't make sense to me that a man grovels on his knees for what he owns. We're not supposed to do that. I don't get why we're put in that position. And so, anyhow, and I want to bring up another point, too. And also, too, don't forget the Democrats are the KKK, founded by the Democratic Party, founded by the Vatican. Do your research.
Hey, Ed.
Because if you look at the emblems that they wear, it's all religious.
Hey, Ed.
And the one point I want to bring up again that I've done many times is ADHD is a fake disease. It is. It's bullshit. Everybody has attention deficit disorder. You're driving down the road, you see a dog, you turn your head. Oh, that's attention deficit disorder. So, I mean, it's knowing what the truth is and how these things are there to program us and to control us mentally, physically, and emotionally. And these things are done that way for a reason.
May I?
Go ahead.
I'm wondering, Ed, how come every church I've ever been in and all the funerals I go to in where there are churches, they always have a yellow fringed flag. And the yellow fringed American flag is kind of interesting because, according to the law, the flag denotes the jurisdiction of the place. So why is the Vatican, all the churches, why are they using yellow fringed flags in all of the churches?
Very good point. Because your court system is run by the Vatican. Your court.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, by religion. And that's the point. Religion is not supposed to be in your court system or dictating to you how to live.
Oh, but look at the UCC. It makes it clear, absolutely clear, where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
From Rome. It tells you in 1963, it's coming from Rome. From Rome to Washington, D.C.
Absolutely.
That's all. That's all. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No problem. But, I mean, no, I agree with you. That's like when I talk to people who are very religious goes, well, give to Caesar on what's Caesar. So if you're supposed to die for Caesar, you're just supposed to die for Caesar. And I always like to say, what the hell am I supposed to die for somebody else in their corporation? Ain't a man supposed to live in freedom? Man and woman? And that is a valid point with our school systems. And, our school systems got the Vatican flag, and everybody's whining because, I don't have a problem with silent prayer in the school. Tell you the truth, I truly do not have a problem with that. I have a problem with they trying to dictate to you, like in Illinois is trying to put Muslim in the schools. I have a problem with that. Because if you're supposed to have freedom of religion, you're not supposed to dictate a word of whose religion, what religion, how a religion is. And that is the point. Where is the terminology of free religion expressed? You know, everybody goes, well, I'm a Muslim, or, oh, I always love this, I'm a Jew. Well, if you're a Jew, go back to your country. America's not a Jewish country. America was invaded by the Jews. We were terrorized and raped by the Jews. And then we're supposed to sit there and comply with that, and in the churches, and that is a good point, with the Rose Fringe flag in the churches, dictating to you the jurisdiction. And that's exactly what they're doing, is dictating to you a jurisdiction of the church and authority of the church by that flag in the courtroom, as well as the church. It's like there's a poster that I got that I put out in emails too, where the Pope, the cop is bringing in a guy to the judge, and the guy says, you know, I'm here, and the judge says, don't you realize that the pastor and us judges are in the same? And that's the point. People don't get it. When you talk to your pastor, your stuff is not confidential, as we were led to believe.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wonder why it is that the churches and the schools aren't flying the flag of peace. How come when you go to church, it's always the yellow fringed flag in the flag as the flag of war in the upright position?
Mm-hmm.
Same way with the schools. I never see them in the flag of peace position. It's always war.
Exactly. And that's what they teach us in school, basically, is to go to war. You're supposed to sit there and honor your country. Well, how come I'm supposed to honor my country that rapes and robs and terrorizes other countries just for the purpose of profits?
Well, it could be to get everybody in church and everybody in the school system used to the flag of war, so when they go into the courtroom, they're expecting one thing and they get another. And you know what I mean.
I do
That's
know.
all.
We sure do get caught up in that expression, don't we? And that is the point when we get this template out, and I'll have the other ones finished. Like I said, sometimes it takes me a little time to put these things together, because when I'm putting something out, it is my butt on the line, and people will, and I've had critiques, and people come back after me on things like that and said, you're out of left field on this and that, until I explain it to them. And I know sometimes I don't write things that are more clarified for people, and but that's the whole point. That's what conversation is all about. You know, and that is the one thing that gets to me about some of these deals where people go to jail and they don't get jury trials and they don't get trials at all. They sit in jail sometimes for months on end, and it's like they are definitely being held prisoner and captive. And people, you've got to realize this is how they make a living off of you. And that's the point when you always got these ministers and say, I'm doing this because I love you. No, you're doing it because you get a chunk of the change. You're getting paid. And that's the one thing that people have to comprehend, that these men and women get paid to do what they do. They don't do it out of the kindness of the heart. Most people don't even do a job out of the kindness of heart. They got to get paid, or they don't even do work. So, I mean, you know, what we do here, we're doing it out of kindness of our heart because we've been screwed. We want to make sure others are aware of it so they don't have to go through the same battle and abuse that we've been through. Hopefully people save that before they go through it, and that's what we're counting on, that people get smarter than themselves sometimes. And I've been there. I can't bitch and moan and groan because I've been there where I've been through the roads of hard knocks and had to learn. And so it is really disgusting that you have to go through that. So it is one of those things that bringing up the points on these issues. And then I'm pulling up Mike's deal right now, where I'm going to bring up his show here. Oh, I'm doing this because I love your money. Yeah, that's what they do with the birth certificates and bonds. Yeah, because that's all they do is love your money. Anyhow, Mike School and Christopher Bruce is doing a deal tonight. Their conference is at 6 p.m. and they're going over tort claims and remedies. So sometimes tort claims work. I mean, I'm sort of curious about, we could get into that show. We'll get some people's opinions on that, or we continue. The call-in number for that is 641-715-3570. Same as ours, but their access code is 970-337. Now, we've got into some of that stuff too, but it's always curious to listen to another man or woman's point of view, maybe some of the education that we missed, we didn't see, we didn't go through. So it's always something that is always nice to bring up that point, you know. And then I got another guy from the Confederation down in the South, and it's like they want help to establish common law to hear the cases in succession. See, they still want to try to succeed. The South is still trying, they got groups that are still trying to succeed from we the people, because they're going, well, we're not supposed to have slavery. We're not supposed to have freedom, what they claim, but their side was the one who brought all this stuff in. Their side was the one that brought all this structure in for the 14th Amendment. And I try to talk to these gentlemen and women over this, and I've been on their conference calls and tried to explain how their side did. Here's the rules, here's the information, here's the men from the South that brought up this stuff, and the South walked out because we weren't going to sit there and pay income and property tax. That's one of the main reasons why the South fought the North, because we weren't going to pay the privilege to live on our land. And the South still believes that you should pay taxes. You should still pay the privilege to basically to their religious organizations, because most of them are Baptists and Christians. And so that you're supposed to go by this law and not the Constitution. Excuse me, I'll take the Constitution over any religion any day of the week, because at least the Constitution was written to protect the people, not the corporations, even though the Constitution is basically a structure of the corporation. But it's time that people comprehend what the writings mean. It's like the 14th Amendment. If you actually read it, they actually separated lawful natives, American natives, compared to immigrants. The large C citizen and small C citizen. It's how they do it. It says it right in the 14th Amendment. What always questions me or makes it curious for me, people read stuff and then they don't read it for what the words say. They read it for what they want to interpret the words. That's the same thing you're bitching about with your courts with attorneys and lawyers and these so-called judges are doing. You're bitching right into their hands. It's like all these guys that are out in the street protesting. How come they're not protesting out with affidavits? How come when they're out there, when the police lineup is sitting there in front of them, how come they're not serving the cops the affidavits and proving their point of the fraud of the system, and serve the cops right then, serve the mayor and city council, and go home? Yeah, that sure diffuses all their games and their mental ability over us. See, we got a lot of things in our favor that we need to open our minds and think. Think how to attack these issues. Think how to open these structures. You know, I mean, I keep going through the Moors, keep bringing up all this stuff, and how the Moors were here before the Indians. The Moors didn't even start, if you actually do the real history, didn't start in this country until the late 1800s. 81, I think it was. So, I mean, you know, it's like Mormons, Baptists, all these religions come from foreign countries that come to this country, and then they want to dictate to you and I how we're supposed to live. Excuse me, the Constitution says that we have a right to freedom from religion or of religion. But it's like the original Constitution says, you know, the United States for America. They changed it in the 14th Amendment of. And like I said, all this stuff is in history. And people go, well, they changed it because of modern time. It's like you got these wackos and nutcases out there going, oh, you don't need arms because when they wrote this was way back then. We're still fighting it today. We got men and women being murdered in the streets by cops. So far, there's been more cops murdered people, I think it's 3-1 today than every mass shooting since January. 3-1 today. So it's like, people, wake up to the real truth. I like walking around the public, as you call it, with my 44, 357, even one of my other ones. Because I know if something happens, I know how to defend myself or somebody else. I've been around with my arms, and I have diffused situations in the past myself. But I'm not sitting out there going to be bragging and all that stuff. That's not something you brag about. And when I hear people brag about different things like that, I mean, I've been in shootouts and stuff like this where I saved people's lives. I've taken out 2 shooters before in my past in nightclubs. So, I mean, but it's not something you sit around and go brag about like some people going, oh, I need to be in center. When a newspaper came up to me in one shooting where I took out the shooter, you know, and they were trying to name me as a hero, I walked out. I wasn't going to give them my name or all that stuff. I don't need to be in the paper over that shit. Because why? I did what I was supposed to do, protect my fellow man and woman that are Americans. I didn't need to go to a war in a foreign country to rape, rob, and steal their family to protect my family. It's simple. That's how the system works. You don't have to be the front line of the paper because that's how they make their living. You know, and that's the one thing the newspapers will tell you. And I've had newspapers tell me that if they didn't get authority from the paper government, that they couldn't run things in the newspaper. I've had people in the past that tell me they were terrified if they would put something in the paper when I recalled the school board and proved they embezzled $30 million. That if they actually wrote it, they could be harassed by the state attorney general and the district attorney, which I was. They came after me after I recalled the school board and proven a fact. And that's the one thing, is proving the facts. And that's what we need to do, and that's what we're all about, is proving these facts of issues. That's why it's so important to put stuff in writing. It's really, realistically important to put things in writing. So once you get that out in writing, nobody can just sit there and say, well, that's not your words. But remember, when you put together an affidavit or anything you're putting together in writing, remember there's going to be somebody out there that's going to critique you. And I know I've been through it just like we all been. But sometimes that's the beauty of life, because it does teach you to keep on track, so that way you're not impersonating or rewriting something, and you always want to keep stuff honorable. I always say that when the schools and these Democrats, these education structures, rewrite history, that's why I support getting rid of the Education Board. The Education Board was formed in, I think it was 1968. And they're charging us over almost $100 million a year now? For what? They don't do any education to the students. It's all mind control. And if they actually cared about the students, they would actually put the peace flag in the schoolroom. They would actually educate the children on the Constitution itself instead of religious structures they're doing in schools now, and teaching that the Constitution basically is a thing of the past. So is the right to arms. That's what they did way back then. We don't have to do that today. Like, we got this nutcase kid, Hogg, that is going out, that is doing this for his father, who's an FBI agent, and all these false flag issues. And, I mean, there's a lot of false flag issues out there we're living. And, I mean, it's like I brought this up yesterday, and I bring it up before. It's like the gay bar shooting in Florida. I mean, I'm sitting there having people sending me emails and live videotapes 2 hours before that shooting even happened, where they're carrying these alleged victims into the bar before the so-called shooting happened. I mean, you know, this is real. I mean, you know, it's like Judge Scalia, you know, oh yeah, he's going to die with a pillow over his face, and they call that what? There's no There's no coroner's report on Judge Scalia, and they basically incinerated his body within less than 18 hours of his death, murder. So, and that's when you see these things, people. We got to start standing together. We've got to start putting these affidavits. So when I get the affidavits out, I will have the ones for the FOIA request out shortly. I will have the other ones out this week. That's a guarantee, because I've got to get them out this week because of timing. And so when we get the stuff out, it's up to you to help do this, to take the responsibility of putting this information out there, passing it on to people who are like-minded. We know that a lot of people that says, oh, you just do what you're told, you just be a good slave. And that is the saddest part we do live, where people have that attitude that you're just supposed to not create a wave or rock the boat, as I keep being told. And I've been through that even with my own family and my own friends and stuff like that who've known me for years. I haven't changed. You know, I was a guy that, used to go get involved in teen years when I see things that are happening wrong. I didn't have a problem speaking up. Never had an issue speaking up. And that's the one thing, we shouldn't be afraid of speaking up when we're talking and being honorable, honest with ourselves and honest with those around. And so once we start doing that, we have less and less problems than we do today. And I did post up, too. We do have a survey structure. Hopefully we'll be getting on the website. I got this sent to me from 2013 to present, how many men and women were murdered by cops. The one I got looks like the dates, times, and who murdered them from the police agencies. So I will get that out. Somebody was nice enough to take the time to put that together to protect the people. And so these are things that we need to look at on these things that are designed to protect we the people. Instead of,
may I?
Go ahead.
These cops that are murdering all these people, I wonder what flag, is it the flag of war or the flag of peace that they're using? It's kind of like the school.
Yep.
How come the schools are flying the yellow fringed flag of war in the schools? Are
Right.
the schools at war? Are they at war with the children? So
Yeah.
what's going on? How come that the law enforcement officers aren't using the flag of peace? Why are they always using the flag of war, particularly when you go into the courtroom to discuss a citation or something with them?
Not only that, it's sewn on their uniform today.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
And I've even said that to them, and I've even said that to military friends of mine that, I had one military friend almost got in a fist fight over it, and I said, why are you supporting the British government? Why are you not an American? I have the flag. Don't you see the gold? And he's got his uniform code. He's got 20 years in the service.
Yep.
And he's pointing at this flag. That's the American flag. Don't you see the gold fringe flag? I said, that's not American flag. That's the British flag. Don't you know the flag difference? I said, you better look it up. What you're doing.
But anyway, when the officer has that military yellow fringe flag on his left shoulder, I guess he's at war. So he's not a peace officer. So somebody's lying. They try to say they're peace officers. What kind of peace is it if it's a flag of war on his arm?
I think it is a peace flag for war. It's a peace for them after they shoot and beat you up and stuff. Then they go to peace themselves when they get off duty.
Anyway, that's all.
I got you. I just had to be a little sarcastic there, but I mean, this is the point that people have got to start comprehending how severe this is going on around us. It really is. And we won't start protecting ourselves. That's why I'll have these other ones written tonight. Like I said, the one thing on the FOIA request, I did go through that and got the information for every federal agency that I'm putting in this, so that way when somebody wants to do that, put a request in, they can put it in for every agency as well in the same one to the senator and representatives, so that way the representative knows that you're saying to check with these agencies too, besides getting the information from the man or woman that you are going to be requesting the information. When they see what we're requesting on the flag, some of these guys might not even know it, get it, comprehend it, and some of them are going to go, "Oh shit, they know." You got to realize that most of these men and women in office, a lot of them believe that you are so stupid and dumb, that you are so religious bound, you don't live in reality. And to tell you the truth, they actually spent $1 billion in research since 1949 on this stuff, to see how people were uneducated, if they believe in religion over the Constitution, if they believe in statute codes over the Constitution. They've already spent the money on research. And when you guys get these surveys on YouTube, and you get these surveys from Facebook, and you get these surveys in the mail, and you have these people that call you up on the phone that says, "I'm doing a survey because it's election time, and we want to know who you're voting for and your thoughts." They're not doing that survey to protect you. They're doing that survey to see how they can manipulate the election for their opponent, their man or woman that they're supporting to run for office. That's exactly what they're doing. They don't care about you. They're not going into office for you. And that's the one thing that people got to start realizing this point. You know, I mean, I talk to people all the time, you know, and, well, we're going to call a representative. They're going to do this. And then they call me back going, "Well, they told me this, and they told me that, and this is the way it works." And I'm going, "Well, did you ever read the administrative rules of what it works?" "No, they said it, so I take their word." And so when you talk to people and you have somebody that's out there that says, "I take somebody's word," unless you know the man or woman that you know the word is honorable, be cautious of these people too, because a lot of people are out there trying to derive income off of you for their personal gain too. Remember, elected and public employees by March 9th, 1933 Bankruptcy Act don't make the income unless you comply with them or insert their rights to supersede yours. That's why if you ever end up in a court proceeding, I always ask to do a certified letter to the court and to your House of Representative or your state representative, Senate representative, and ask them, "I expect to see you in court on so-and-so day. I expect you to represent the law, not statute codes and administration. Did you take an oath?" And as has been drilled into my head, always ask for a certified copy. And when we do this FOIA request, preferably put it out in paper, hard copy, so that way they respond to you in a hard copy. If you do it by email, they'll respond email. But if you do it in a hard copy, they will respond in a hard copy if they do respond. And so we want to get these questions out, and like I said, I'll have the FOIA request done here in a little bit, so we can get that out. That is one of the most important structures, because once we start getting these men and women and put them on the spot the way they need to be put on the spot, remember, they put us on the spot. You know, when they get us pulled over by some elected and public employee that is supposed to be there to protect you, instead he's being a forcer for his own financial gain. It is scary when you really think about how our country has evolved through religion. You know, you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do that. And, you know, who gives people the rights to dictate on religion? The Pope does. And everybody wants to follow the Pope. It's like the Pope says, "We need to go to One World Bank." And it's like, why do we need to go to One World Bank? Well, you got to remember that these men and women do this for financial gain. They're not out there to protect you. And I keep repeating that, but I'm going to beat that in the head of people, because that is the one thing that people need to really comprehend the truth. And once we start comprehending what the truth is, then we know what's going to happen in the future. It's like everybody says, the children are our future, but look at what the children are doing today. They have the worst education in the world. They're not intelligent when it comes down to it. They're programmed in such a fashion. These kids are out there whining and crying, we need to give up our arms. We need to give up our rights. And it's like, it's disturbing with these people that are out there claiming this, like this little radical kid is doing this right now in our country, and he wasn't even at school, it was proven. Then he's got such a foul mouth, and to me, it's like people who condone that, it's frustrating to me. Because if the guy's got such a foul mouth, why are people following him? What happened to respect? What happened to courtesy? What happened to honor? What happened to life itself? And in that way, we don't even have life ourselves, literally, that is put out there for the general public to enjoy and prosper from our lives and that stuff. See, that's the one thing that people don't get it, and then you got all these people going, well, this is a Jewish country. This is Christianity. This is that. This is this. Well, if you want to live in a foreign nation and not honor what our forefathers gave us by the Constitution that gave us to protect ourselves, then that's what gets to me. We don't get it. We don't get the way people sit there and will give up their rights to some religious book that was written by man. Remember, man made laws. Man made the Bible. Man made the structure of these things. Oh, the only thing that what is allegedly told to us in history is the Ten Commandments were made by God. Okay, I don't have an issue with the Ten Commandments because to me it's like common sense. You don't cheat, you don't steal, you don't do this, you don't do that. And, that's common sense to me. And so, it's very disturbing that people don't get this reality point of what's going on in our territories, in our schools, in our system, to tell you the truth. I mean, we got the system going out and stealing children that are claiming they're mentally ill so that way they can get the Title IV money. So that way they can bill it in the state. And this is where we've got to start writing these things and start going after these men and women and suing them and putting them in prison. And that is a fact. We got to make sure that these men and women end up in prison. Because if we don't do that, this is how they're getting away with this structure terrorizing us, destroying our families, destroying the structures around us. And it's sad. It really is sad that we're going through this and dealing with the terrorization of the structure that we are what we call, laws or Bible or, something to that effect. So it is the structure that we are forced to live right now, forced against our will. And that's the one thing that people have got to comprehend, that we are forced against our will in these manners. I don't support this stuff. I don't believe in this stuff that goes on. So, and that's why we put together this stuff to be served, and so that way people can sit there and, respond, speak up, defend one another, because one thing is, don't forget, the men and women who are strong and intelligent are supposed to be defending the mentally ill, the less fortunate. We're not supposed to go out and take advantage of them. I watch so many people go out and take advantage of people for their own personal and financial gain, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And we're letting these people destroy our families, kidnapping the disabled and elderly, shooting the disabled and elderly on the streets. And people go, what are we supposed to do? Well, technically, What do we do when the British used to do that to us? Remember, there's no difference. It's the same, the British. So these men and women take an oath to the Vatican. These men and women take an oath to their structure. And it's true. Wake up. See the whole facts of reality. They make an oath to destroy your life through their religious beliefs. It's not a joke. It's real. So when they keep destroying our lives by this fashion, and like I said, with the flag, I'm going to finish that up here in a little bit. I'm going to jump on that and get that one finished up and get that emailed to people. We'll get some commentaries on it. We'll come up with a rational thing. So next week we'll have it ready. If we get it put together sooner, we'll have it on the website guaranteed, or we'll have it on Saturday night after we have our conversation on it and figure out the best way of putting it together. Because once we start nailing this and we start producing, I already freaked out the House and Senate. That's a fact, because when I put the letter in of who owns the people, do you think that they're answering my questions? No, they're freaking out. They know people are waking up. And it's a fact. People are waking up to the bullshit and the fraud. That's why I don't support a lot of these programs out there. Everybody says jump on this bandwagon, jump on that bandwagon. We're out to save you. Oh, baloney. Most people don't do anything without an income. Most people don't do anything for the kindness of their heart. And that's the reality of the world. Do we blame them? No. We got to look at the way they were brought up, the terrorizing acts that happened to them, the circumstances that happened to them. The reason why this, that, and the other thing. See, sometimes we got to step out of the movie and watch the production. We got to look at how they became the way they are. Because I do believe with a little compassion first before you jump in and go after them. And then after the compassion part, then everybody's open game. But first you have to get into, having some compassion on some of these men and women first to figure out what, why, and how. And then once you comprehend the what, why, and how, then you can go after them and say other stuff. I always believe in giving somebody the benefit of the doubt first. I try to do that without, hurting people's feelings or emotions. Sometimes if I know the truth first, I won't give them the benefit of the doubt. Or sometimes, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and look at things and see what happens. But that's up to you. And it comes to you, and it comes up to circumstances of what, why, and how you're going to handle the situations, what you're going to do in those situations. And so it was, like I said, it was a wonderful idea to bring them up. And like I said, I've got most of the stuff with the Foreign Registration Act. the FARA, and that is the one thing that we're going to be putting in this registration too. We're going to ask these men and women, besides proving the flag, are they registered with the FAIR Act? We don't need to get into it more than that. We just two simple questions, see what kind of answer that we get. And once we get the answers, and maybe we'll get some really good answers, and then again, we might get some of these answers from these public employees says, well, I don't have to register. I've heard that before. But we are, by the grace, watching these men and women going to jail now for not registering themselves with the Foreign Agent Registration Act. That was applied after World War I, before World War II started, so we know who was coming into our country, who was going to infiltrate us. That includes doctors, lawyers, attorneys, all professionals. Because what was that paperclip where all these foreigners came from? What country was that? Germany. Johnson & Johnson are the original scientists for the Nazi Germany Foundation. And then they sell a lot of their products to we the people, and we just jump on the bandwagon, buying this stuff, accepting their purposes. And so that's what we're losing on these things. And so that is the saddest part of losing these arguments. And we shouldn't be losing these arguments. We're supposed to be winning these arguments. So, that's a good advice that we are taking, that we're going to have out and to get out dealing with that. Because that's a good comment. Asking people what, why, and how. You can't argue that one. You really can't argue that one. And so these are the things that are going to benefit us. So we have to work on the beneficial of ourselves first, and then we pass that knowledge down to our children, so that way they don't have to grow up in the same confusion. And that's the one thing, like I said, I've always supported homeschooling. Always supported homeschooling. Because homeschooling, at least at least the kids are getting educated. And then the other point with homeschooling, some of the states are going after homeschoolers, and we're dealing with that too, because they don't want people to have the rights to teach their kids. They want them programmed. They want them to be controlled by a religion organization. Illinois is definitely proving that when they have Muslim advisors to the legislative councils. See, that's the one thing. Where the hell are these foreign religions and foreign people coming into our country telling us how to live? People really need to think about this one. Seriously need to think about how these people are coming into our country. They're supposed to come into our country, go by our Constitution, our ways of life. They're supposed to leave theirs in the country they come from, and they come in for a new life, they claim, so they need to do it for their bloodline, as well as to do this for our honor. They want our life. They want our Constitution. They want our freedom. Remember, we're the only place in the world that has a Constitution. Some of these other countries had a Constitution that came in after the fact of we the people. Constitution became a structure in history. And we do have the affidavit dealing with in 1993 where the Queen of England restamped the Constitution as the law of the land. That's when they were trying to go back to take over this country again, back for England. We don't want the British. We don't want religion. We don't want any of that. We want freedom. We want to be able to go hunt and fish. We want to go out and enjoy our lives in the wilderness. We're supposed to have respect. And so, anyhow, with that, does anybody else have any other comments? Because I really didn't open up the floor. I was trying to get the floor open to see how we're going to bounce things around. Okay, no comment. So, does anybody want to go over and listen to Mike and this other guy's education show?
Ed, the floor has been open for quite a while, but you are so passionate when you're speaking that anybody could barely get a word in edgewise. I tried 3 different times.
Oh, well, all you had to do is tell me to shut up and listen.
I was trying to, but I couldn't get in to get you to shut up and listen.
I am now. Go ahead.
Anybody want to talk? Come on, go ahead. Just real quick. Actually, how about we take a consensus? Who wants to go over and learn about torch stuff, or who wants to stay here and talk? I think you put everybody to sleep, Ed.
I think I possibly did, too. That's an interesting one.
Usually you're the one falling asleep.
That's true. I've done that. More than once. More than once. And more than one talk show, too. I burn the candle at both ends of the stick, sometimes, so that happens. So, and there's an immigrant that I always like to praise. Seriously, I like to praise this immigrant. Lorenzo Incinero. One thing about him, he's an immigrant. He's been dealing with the Bundys and a whole bunch of other people's cases and bringing out stuff, following them like John Lamb and these guys. And these are the points to bring up to the circumstances when we have an immigrant that comes to this country that preaches the Constitution. Doesn't talk about where he came from. Doesn't talk about his structure whatsoever. He came to this country, and his parents brought him here because they knew this country, once they became lawful in this country, passed the blood down, they had rights. And this man knows this. That's why I respect him with a lot of passion on this, because he's proven that immigrants come to this country and they know the truth. That is the one point that people know the truth. So if we know the truth, we have to stand for the truth. You know, I get sometimes frustrated with all these talk shows that people want to go do all this, and they charge people all this crazy money, you know, and nobody gets any resolve out of what they charge them for. You know, and they give them education that is not all true education. That is the whole point. A lot of the education we get out there is interpreted, and I don't like interpretation. I want to read the facts. You know, that's why I do a lot of reading and research. And so it is very important that you look at these things. Oh, I already shared that. So it is very important that you look at these things and to go along with your thoughts, your decisions, and what is a fact to you. You cannot sit there and take somebody else's idea in doing that. And that is the one thing that people cannot act like a foreign agent or anything like that unless the judge, the district attorney, and all that, because you're not a foreign agent unless you are a small C citizen. And to make sure, you know, that people don't get it, we are the enemies to this country if you are a citizen or national. You are the enemy. It clearly states that in the laws. Executive Order 2040, and people say, well, what does that mean? Remember, executive orders were placed over your elected and public servants and your registered church members. So, anyhow, does anybody like to speak up? Okay. So, I'm posting this up on our YouTube wall, our Facebook walls. You know, the enemy, and this is dealing with veterans, too. You know, veterans who have fought in foreign wars, you know, are taking over, they're considered taking over the United States. It's looking at how these things have been presented, rewritten, written for you to interpret. And that's the one thing that people do have to realize. A lot of stuff is written in a fashion because they know that a lot of people are religious. And so they are programmed to interpret, because most people interpret the Bible. I've been through Bible studies, and I know what it's like to sit down and interpret and think of, you know, who, what, why, and how. And so this is the one thing that people have got to start comprehending, how it really works compared to what they think it works. Because when we put out these men and women to go fight these alleged wars, they're not on our soil. That's the point that people have got to get to, the point that it's not on our soil. So why are we going to foreign soils to do this stuff? So that is the one point that sort of shocks me, that we're willing to go to foreign countries instead of in our own country to protect ourselves. People don't get it. They go into foreign countries to go fight for what? Gold, silver, the rape, rob, and pillage. And that is the point. And people don't get it. They don't read the structure. They don't read it with an open mind. They don't comprehend what's really going on. And then when you tell people what's going on, most people don't want to believe you. Or I always love it when people want to go bury their head in their Bible and go, well, this is going to save me, this is going to solve the problem. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. That's the thing that gets to me, how people don't step out of the movie, watch the production. That's why one of the best movies I recommend to people, is Highway what is that, Interstate 60. It explains your court systems to you. You know, I mean, how do you think these judges, lawyers, and attorneys and all these people have been raping, robbing, and depriving our country of these circumstances? They're bleeding our country out of our assets, and everybody keeps going, well, that's acceptable because I get a piece of the pie. Well, to me, it's sort of disturbing when people say that's acceptable, when it's not. We're not supposed to be sitting here going after each other and doing this stuff to men and women. And it is sad that these things happen, that we keep fighting this stuff and going against each other. So anyhow, anybody else has got anything? Because we never even heard a vote or anything, and we wanted to go listen to Mike and his buddy on tort claims, because I'm wondering that might be an interesting circumstances. Because, you know, for some people who are going through this and you got to file in court, and like I said, I'm still doing research, because when I do this, when we started putting together this talk show together for the separation of lawful and legal, and we're going to do the lawful and legal on the Article 1 court and the Article 3 court. We're going to go through and explain that to people, because, you know, I mean, it takes sometimes people a little time to get this through people's heads, including mine. I can't deny that. Sometimes it takes me a while to get things through my thick skull. So, but sometimes you got to analyze these things a little bit more than what we do, and that is the main thing that we have to do. We don't sit there and protect ourselves and in our bloodline first. That's the one thing that I don't comprehend, how a lot of people will sit there and turn their bloodline over to another structure with no compassion. I mean, I've watched people turn their own kids over to the state, and then they want to fight afterwards, instead of when the cop is going, well, we have a right to take your kid, and it's like, where's the warrant? And remember, a warrant has to be done by a grand jury. A warrant has to be done by a grand jury. That's the law. Statute, codes, and administrative rules says a corporation administrative judge could issue a warrant, but that's only on the dead man or actual man or woman that has actually, truly caused personal and property harm. See, we're not even supposed to be even in any of these courts unless we didn't follow through with a remedy to the injured party, the injured victim. And after people didn't come with a remedy, that was the only point afterwards that you could go after them for a solution. Otherwise, these courts, because if we borrow money from a man or a woman, it's your liability, not theirs. So when they come knocking on your door and you ain't got the money and they sit there and do what they do, well, what are you bitching about? Because you know you shouldn't have borrowed the money. And I always have fun with people on this one, because people say, well, I borrowed the money because I were able to. I should have done this because of this, that, and the other thing. Well, I get the point, but if you're going to borrow, let's start working on being honorable and teach our children to be honorable. The children today ain't honorable. I mean, it's sad when I watch these kids that don't even have a clue of what's going on around them. And that is sad. That really is sad. So the only way we're going to stop this stuff is by standing up for ourselves, as we are doing, further educating ourselves, as we are doing. And so when we do this, it's one of those things that is to protect all of us. Our laws are put in to protect we the people of this country, of this circumstance. We're not here for others. And once we get to that point that we are here for ourselves to protect our bloodline, our country, and then it goes to others. that is the one thing that people need to start really evaluating their positions and their standings of what they're doing. So anyhow, any further thoughts at this point? Okay, no thoughts at this point. I think that I'm going to give it out again because I think it would be interesting to go see what Mike is talking about. I've known Mike for some time. We've worked on several issues, and that is very good structure because we bring out a lot of points together. He runs Citizen Network, which to me I don't get along with the word citizen in any circumstances because I just don't believe in citizenry or anything like that. Citizen was a foreign structure that came in from a foreign area, a foreign structure. And so that's the one thing that people have got to, realize what's going on. I mean, and it's interesting how the police are out there attacking these people that are going against the neo-Nazi regime, because people are standing up for this country and don't want this crap. So now your elected and public servants are sending out the military to go after people who are standing against even religion. I mean, that's the one point. How come these men and women are not honoring their oath of servitude? Because people are not filing on their oath of servitude to them. So you have to file. You have to file on these things, and that's a fact. And it's up to you to file on them, because if you don't file on them, nothing's going to be happening. So, with that, let me get back over here. I was going to...
A public announcement.
Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Ed has beat his old record on the knows, and now is currently 70.
Oh, my God, I really went crazy on that one today, didn't I?
At the beginning of the show, you had effectively, like within one sentence, 5 different knows.
Oh. Well, sometimes you just, it is one of those things.
Oh, yeah. Well, what do you think? Should we let it just the show finish out and everybody can... Because nobody's wanting to talk. So...
Yeah, that's what I was doing, is I was going to go back here and give Mike's number out again.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
So I figured, with seeing that they're doing a talk show on tort claims and stuff like this, it should be pretty educational.
So, tort claims, are we talking tortoise shells or what?
We're talking how to file a tort claim against your elected and public servant.
A tort, T-O-R-T?
Yes.
So, like tortoise shell cats, Well,
you could go off on that, but a tort is
what,
a different structure.
What is the tort? What is a tort?
Hang on a second. My computer just went doing. I was trying to look up the technical term, but I don't have it in front of my face because I don't want to quote something that I don't want to be misquoting.
Right, and, I'm just asking because I personally do not know, and I know most of our listeners are probably sitting here going, tort? What the... Are we talking race cars? No, that's torque.
No, I got where it's coming from. That's what I'm trying to pull up here. I want to get up his here too, but my computer is working like all of a sudden it starts going into turtle mode.
Kind of like a tortoise.
Why don't you type up the tort and read what the
I'm doing it now. Hold on.
I mean, I can't even get anything to come up on my computer right now, and I don't want to crash it yet until after I give Mike's number out again.
Well,
It's the same number as ours, 641
a tort
715. Go ahead.
in common law jurisdictions is a civil wrong that causes someone else to suffer loss or harm resulting in legal liability for the person who commits the tortious act. The person who commits the act is called a tortfester or tortfeasor, although crimes may be torts. To me, it just looks like a different type of way to say crime.
It's the legal version of the crime under civil, what they call civil law. And remember, civil is religious Vatican court system.
Right. The word tort is French for wrong. A tort claim that is a claim in which someone seeks compensation for someone else's wrongdoing. Okay, so that's what a tort claim is. You're basically suing.
You're suing a man or a woman. You cannot. I don't believe you can sue a corporation under a tort. Maybe you can, but to my knowledge, I don't think you can. I think it's supposed to be a live man or a woman. To my comprehension.
Anybody got any input on this? I mean, there's a very, very knowledgeable individual, living man in here. No, actually, he left. Milton is no longer here.
Oh, okay.
I thought he would have jumped in. Actually, the tort is this. Okay, good.
Yeah, that was sort of.
Well, I've got my legal dictionary right here next to me, and he's calling out.
Right.
But, okay, well, how about we, you find that number.
That's what I'm working on right now. Like I said, my computer is going on. I didn't write it down when I read it earlier, which probably I should have, because my computer now basically has frozen up on me again.
Did you put it on Facebook at all?
I'm on Facebook.
I'm saying, did you repost that number?
Go ahead, May.
Yes, that number is 641-715-3570. Access number is 970337.
Yep. So, I agree. I think we should go over and listen to that one because we might get some other information that'll be helpful for all of us. So, I mean, and that's the whole point, is about educating ourselves to know how to comprehend, to make sure we're not in these trouble positions. So this way it protects the bloodline and it protects ourselves. And so that way when these positions being attacked and assaulted, we actually know how to protect ourselves better than a corporation lawyer or attorney. And I always love it when people say, there's a difference between a lawyer and an attorney. Well, Bouvier says the same thing. Black Law Dictionary says the same thing. It depends on what issue you read of the dictionary. And it says in Black Law Dictionary, a lawyer is described as a liar. So it's very simple how these things come together and what they say. And remember, I put up a deal on that because in England, when they wrote the Black Law Dictionary by the jesters of the court, attorneys, they never even, this was back in the 13th century, they never even expected anybody to believe this crap. They never expected anybody to go along with this stuff. And then they rewrote a book afterwards, and after that, to come forward and ask people, what the hell? Why are we going through this? And nobody's responding to those questions. So it is interesting how we're involved in these circumstances that we don't even know what's going on around us. So, but with that, I'm going to eventually jump back here on the internet, seeing I have finally crashed it and it's going nuts on me. So I had to do that. So, and then I got to go through this and then, come on, computer. And then crash everything else around it. So that way, anyhow, it's just one of those fun things I get to do. So anyhow, with that, I'm going to say, may the Great Spirit bless you. May you have a wonderful evening. We'll get those templates out, and I'll be talking to a few of you here in the next couple of days. So that way we get this part out so people comprehend what all this is about. And that's what our job is, to educate one another on these issues. It's for us. It's for your children. And remember, the system doesn't care about you. Because these men and women care about their job, pension, and career more than they care about for you. Because that you are just something of the past to them. And as soon as you accept that point, that's when you're going to start winning. That's when you're going to start prevailing. So may the Great Spirit bless you. May Mother look over you. And may the Creator bless your travels.
Thank you for listening to Education by Ed. It is currently April 22nd, 2018. And just for a side note, my personal opinion, although my son here is enjoying his opinions too, which is great. My personal opinion is tort is wrong in French, but World War I, Americans saved French. World War II, they hated us until it was time for us to save their asses again. They hate us even nowadays. So why the hell are we using anything French in this damn country? Show me something that was good from France. It can't be French fries because that's a lie, and they never invented it. So, but either way, go listen to Tort Claims. I'm going to go play my video games. Later.
Yeah, I gotta get back to writing, and I'm gonna go listen to join Mike and his partner for a bit.
All right.
And again, just to reiterate the number, and we thank the guy bringing that up, but it's 641-715-3570. And the password is 970337. So it is worth jumping on and taking a listen.
All right. So good night, everybody.